Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello and welcome to our course Marketing Management Part 2. We are in session 2. So, just to begin with, we have started talking about what we have already discussed in Marketing Management Part 1. So, session 1 was about the recap of what we have discussed in Marketing Management Part 1. So, we have started this recap with talking about a little bit on the common myths in our society about marketing, and then we started defining marketing with two different perspectives. The first one was social exchange perspective, or as a societal process what happens inside the marketing. So, we discussed about the social exchange definition of marketing, wherein we said like basically it is an exchange of value between two parties, and then we discussed about 5 necessary conditions for this exchange of value to happen. So, there should be two parties, both parties should have of something of value to exchange to each other. They should be able to communicate and deliver the value to each other. Both the parties should be able to accept or reject the offer from the other side, and each party should find it or believes that it is appropriate or desirable to deal with the other party. So, these were the 5 necessary conditions with that first perspective of defining the marketing, that is social exchange process, where we define that marketing is a societal process by which individual and groups obtain what they need and want through creating, offering and freely exchanging products and services of value with the others. Now, continuing with that the definition of marketing, we have looked marketing from the different perspective. A more commonly discussed perspective, that marketing as an organizational function. So, we looked into the AMA's definition, American Marketing Association's definition of what marketing is, and there we see that marketing is an organizational function and a set of process for creating, communicating and delivering value to customer, and for managing customer relationship in ways that benefit the organization and stakeholders. Now, if you can understand and if you can recall our past discussion, you will understand that in both this definition, whether it is a social exchange process or whether marketing as an organizational function and a set of activities, we have discussed about that it is actually the exchange of value or the creation, communication and delivery of value. So, value is something which is a core concept in the marketing, and then we discussed about what value is. So, we define value as a function of benefit and the cost, and then we delve deeper into the benefits and the cost, and we say that there are two types of benefit that a customer seek from a product. Is the categorization of these benefits is in the form of functional benefits and the emotional benefit. We discussed about example of the car that satisfy our basic needs like transportation and security, and then we have looked into the emotional need that is catered by the car, that is social status of an individual or a family. So, that is emotional benefit, and then we started looking into the second component of this function, which is cost. So, cost is consisting of 4 different types of cost. Basically, it includes monetary cost, the commonly understood thing that we provide the monetary benefit to the firm which is selling or offering product to us. Then we have also talked about 3 different other costs, which is psychic cost, the mental effort that an individual buyer or a family or whomsoever is purchasing it puts into the purchase process, and that is psychic cost. And then the energy cost, that the labor that an individual or a buyer puts into the purchase process, and the time cost, the amount of time being incurred and the value of that time for that customer. So, these are the component of the cost vis-a-vis the benefit which is in the form of functional and the emotional benefit. So this defines basically a marketing system which consists of the seller and the buyer. There is a exchange of value in terms of the product or the service offered by the seller, and then you have a monetary benefits coming back from the customer side. And one of the loop is on the top is that you can see that sellers communicate about their offering to the buyers, and the loop is closed by the back forth information from the customer side to the buyer to the seller. And this is something which is of great importance. Sometimes we see in today's world that some companies their market valuation or the valuation is much higher than uh, probably what they are selling in terms of their sales, and it is because of this thing that the kind of information that they have about the customer that is of very high value to the other companies or the of other organization, and that is why their market valuation is sometimes very higher. And then we have looked into the difference in the sales and the marketing as a process, wherein you see that sales is only concerned with the making the product and selling it to the customer. So this is basically a push strategy, that whatever I make, I'll try to give it to the customer by offering some kind of discount or anything which that customer prefers. On the other side, if you look into the marketing starts much before the product is produced. That it starts with the understanding the customer needs and understanding what they value, and then accordingly design the product and then manufacture and deliver it to the customer. So the basic difference in the as a value delivery process, you can see that marketing includes that identifying and creation of the value. Then we have looked into the core some of the core concepts like need, want and demand, which are key to understanding marketing as a course. And then I talked about the strategic marketing process, how the marketing as a function is being executed in an organization. So it has basically 3 phases, wherein you start the marketing with business analysis. We have discussed about this 3C framework, where you looked into the customer, company and competitor. You analyze your customer, you look into as a company as what are your resources and capability, what are your strengths and weaknesses, what are the opportunity and threats which are present in front of you. And then we have also looked into the various framework or the ways to analyze the competition in the market, and based on these 3 analysis we prepare our marketing strategy, which includes 3 important components, which includes segmentation, targeting and positioning. These are the building blocks of the marketing strategy, and then this marketing strategy is executed through this 4 P's in the case of products, 7 P's in the case of services. And just as we were discussing about what we have discussed in the previous course, I talked to you about little bit about marketing research process, the steps involved in the marketing research process, and what information comes out from the marketing research process goes as an input to marketing managers. We talked about the different types of research design, that is exploratory and conclusive research design. And then we have looked into the different types of market and buyer behavior based on the different types of customer being served. So there are 2 types of customer, consumer markets and the business market. And then we have tried to understand into the buying or buyer behavior corresponding to each type of market, that is consumer market as well as business market. So consumer market, when we talk about basic buyer decision models, it includes 5 steps, that is need recognition, information search, evaluation of alternatives, purchase decision and post purchase behavior. And this gets modified in the case of B2B buying, because B2B buying, as I have discussed also in the previous class, that it instead of an individual customer or a consumer or a family at max, there is a group of people or the group of professionals which are involved in the buying process, and that group is called as buying center. And the purchase process is far more complex than the B2C buying, and that is why we see that buying process gets modified, the decision decision process gets modified and it's far more complex in B2B case, then once you analyze your customers, once you analyze your company, and once you analyze your competitor, you are able to form your marketing strategies, which I talked briefly in as includes segmentation, targeting and positioning. In segmentation is basically a very important concept in the marketing, in the sense like you will see that segmentation is important for any company, because as an organization, as a firm, I am limited by my resources and capabilities. So I cannot focus on all the customers in the market, or all the segments of the market which are there, or all groups of customers in the market. So what we do is, first we divide the market in a homogeneous customers, which we call as segment, and then we try to, and when we do this customer segmentation, we try to maintain this thing that within a segment customers are as homogeneous as possible, and the customers across different customer segments are different. So the choice of the factors on which we do the segmentation is also very critical, because the sharper our differentiation among this customer segment is, our marketing strategies, the response to our marketing strategies will also be equally better in that case. So one has to understand that the criteria for making the segmentation has to be very good, in the sense it should be researched out properly, and once you divide the customer in homogeneous classes, you can choose to focus on a particular segment or a group of segment depending on your conditions, your offerings, and the competitive intensity in the market, which is called as targeting. And the third thing which includes this marketing strategy is basically positioning. So how you place the offering in the mind of the customer so that it is unique and differentiated. So these three concepts are given, the definition of each one of them, or what happens inside each one of them has been detailed out in this slide. As you can see, that segmentation is identification of customer needs and market segment, and you develop profile of resulting market segment. So you understand, when we say the profile of the customer segment, so it includes the needs of the customer, and it also includes the psychographic, demographic, other details about the customer, so that you can target them with utmost accuracy. And then you go, then once you have segmented the market, you go and identify the target segment. So first thing that you do is you develop the criterias based on which you evaluate the market segments, and then you decide basically how you basically evaluate. Once you evaluate the segments, then you can decide upon the contingent conditions that you have, which segments to target, and then positioning comes into the picture. Now talking about this segmentation, you can recall from this marketing management part 1 that in B2C market generally we segment the market based on 4 broad factors, that is demographic, behavioral, geographic and psychographic. So demographic, as you can understand, it includes the individual's characteristics like age, income, gender. So these things can be useful criteria to sometimes divide or segment the market, in the sense people in a certain age group tend to have certain kind of similar needs, like the people who are in the who have just started into their services or the job in the age range from 20 something to 30 or 35, and the people from that age group of 35 to something like 55, and then people beyond 55. These 3 segments based on the age will probably exhibit a different kind of needs in terms of their financial security, and based on that you will see that insurance companies might be designing their offering accordingly. But you will also understand that sometimes demographic characteristics may not exactly tell about the behavior of the users. So people in the similar age group may still have a different kind of behavior. Someone with the same income level might exhibit a much better or a much higher expenditure level than what I do, because it is rooted in my beliefs, it is rooted in my conditions or upbringing. So, the behavioral and psychographic factors also comes into the picture, and that is why you see that attitude, interest and opinion also comes into the picture. Then the fourth way of fourth set of variables which play a role in the segmentation of B2C market is the geographic segmentation, that you see that based on the location of the people have a similar need, because as you can understand, people who are staying in a coastal area and the people who are staying in a dry area, they have a different environmental and the locational needs, and because of those conditions they may have a different set of needs, and accordingly you have to offer first segment the market and create offering as per the needs of those different locational customer segments. So, this was about B2C segmentation, and then equally we can look into this B2B segmentation, that like B2C demographic segmentation, you can also segment B2B market based on a demographic. However, the demographics will change in terms, instead of age, income, gender, you will see it is the size of the firm, the number of employees, the industry sectors. So, those things will come into the picture as a basically demographic of the organization. Now, in terms of the operating variables can also be important basis the what kind of technology company has. So, all those factors will also come into the picture. Then the different purchasing approaches, like whether they are centralized or decentralized, those things can also be the basis of the segmentation. Then situational factors and the buyer characteristics also comes into the picture in B2B buying. We have dealt with all these basis of segmentation in marketing management in much more detail. I suggest you can go back to some of those classes where we have discussed into the B2B buying process. You can look into the way we have classified the different products in B2B market, the way the customer have been segmented. Those things can be looked back and to understand what could be the basis of the criteria for segmenting B2B market. So, once you have segmented the market, the next thing is like how you will evaluate different segments. So, you see there can be different factors that will come into the picture to evaluate the different segment, and here you can have the size and the growth rate, and an important criteria like what is the size of the each segment. So, bigger the size of the segment, it could be lucrative, but you have to look into this size of the segment with some other factors like what is the growth rate. A large segment which is showing a declining growth rate, or a large segment which is probably where the product is losing relevance, might not be a very good segment to target. So, the size has to be looked with other criteria. Then structural attractiveness, like what is the competitive intensity, what is the threat of substitute, buyer and seller side negotiation power. This could be the important structural characteristic that needs to be looked into while you are evaluating the different segments. Then the last thing that the third the criteria, the third set of criteria I would say would include the firm's objectives and the resources. So, depending on the what kind of objectives an organization is, sometimes it may happen that the kind of objectives you have, the segment will not offer, though it might be a sizable segment, though it might be a growing segment, but you will find that it might not be a segment which gels well with your organizational objectives. So, supposedly you are basically you want to remain as a technology leader. So, in that case you may not like to enter into a bigger emerging markets, but these are more mature market in terms of the technology. So, only those technologies which are matured in their technology life cycles, they exist in there, and when you operate in such market, you have a chance that you will lose from the sight of where the technology is moving. So rather you would like to focus in a market like US rather than focusing on India and China, so that you remain on the edge of the technology and you can bring the new products, because those are basically demanding markets. The customers are basically innovators or the early adopters, and understanding their needs and bringing the product according to those needs will keep you on the edge of the technology or the front runner in terms of the product innovator. So that is basically a strategic choice as an organization. You have to make that which kind of market segment you will choose will also decide what is basically your future also. So that is what the relative the objective of the organization can also affect your choice of the segments. Then the relative availability of skills and capability, product variability, these are some of the important things that can also come into the picture when you are evaluating the market segments. So once you have looked into the different criterias and you have looked into the options, you will see that you can visualize a matrix kind of a structure will come into the picture, where will come into the picture that you have different options and you have different criteria, and you evaluate those options based on these criteria, and based on that you can make a choice which segment or which set of segments that you want to target in as an organization. So this was all about the strategic marketing part, and how it is being executed is those 4P. In terms of 4P, you can understand that it's like product, price, place and promotion. And in terms of this is basically the seller's perspective of product, price, place and promotion. You can understand when we look into from the customer side, product changes into the customer solution, the price changes into the cost that a customer bears to own the product. The place is basically the convenience where a customer wants to have the product, and promotion is basically the communication from the company side about the product. So this is the marketing mix from the seller side and from the customer side, and we are going to discuss these 4 P's, each one of them in much more detail in this course. So we will first look into the product part. We will try to understand what product is, and product is generally, you will see that many times companies are not just offering having one product or the services. They will have a bundle of different brands and the product offerings in their portfolio. So understanding the how to manage the entire product portfolio is being part of this first P, that is product. Then we looked into the second part, like how to price a product. Then we looked into like third thing, which is place. So where and how the product should be placed or how it should be distributed, who should be your channel partners, how you should select your channel partners. So how you develop basically the criteria to evaluate the different channel options, and then evaluating those channel options will come under this place part. And the fourth thing is that promotion, where we will talk about integrated marketing communication thing, where we see that using the different channels of communication, how we should integrate our message across different channel options so that you send a unifying message to your customers. So this is 4P, and we are going to discuss this 4P in much more detail as we proceed further in the course. So I stop this session at this point, and then when we will meet into the next session, we will talk about the first P, and we will start with the first P, that is product. Thank you very much.